Welcome to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. This is our weekly venture into the world of small to medium-sized businesses and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives success.
So our goal here is to help you grow and to be the best you can be, both in business and personally. To do that, we identify and we discuss topics that will hopefully help you as you work to build a successful business.
We also interview business owners and executives. It's our hope that you may be able to gain insight on ways to help you be a better leader and provide a better culture for your people.
Our mission here is to help you pull the chute once a week to work on your business instead of always working in your business.
So we hope you find these discussions insightful, helpful, and useful.
And thanks for your support. We hope you enjoy today's podcast.
Well, welcome everyone to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. We are so excited as always that you're here. It's a beautiful day in Nashville. It's going to be like 106 today with the heat index or something.
Oh, mummy.
I know the humidity levels is what the killer is. It's like,
yeah.
Mary got me this new weather machine that I put outside and it measures, I know exactly what the humidity is. It was 88% last night. It was
like, that's crazy.
Oh, gosh, that's insane.
Yeah, you go outside and it doesn't feel like it's night.
Yeah.
It feels like it's still daytime. Yeah.
I walked outside, I felt like I was just inhaling water. It's just like so.
Yeah. It's good for our skin though, Jeff. It's good for our skin.
That is true. Hey, Jana, we have a wonderful guest today. Mr. Brad Englert is with us. We are so excited that you're here. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
So, Brad, what we like to do a lot of times is just have you kind of tell our guests a little bit about yourself. So if you could start us off with that, and then we're going to kind of roll into your book that you've written. And I'm excited to talk about that. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you're at today.
Well, I grew up outside of Chicago and went to undergraduate school there. And then I taught in Australia for a couple of years.
Okay.
Wow.
And was an exchange student there in high school. So I wanted to go to graduate school and I didn't want to be cold anymore. So I picked Austin, Texas.
Woo!
And after graduate school, my research in graduate school was public policy and the use of computers in government. This is the early 80s when, personal computers were just starting, and 22 years with Arthur Andersen, which became Andersen Consulting, which became Accenture. And I was a partner for 10 years.
Oh.
And my practice area was primarily higher education. So I worked at Columbia, Vanderbilt, which is, of course, in Nashville. Enjoyed that. Ohio State, Michigan, Texas A&M, Cal State. Happily retired. And then 2 years later, I got a call from the University of Texas at Austin. They needed an IT strategy and they wanted someone from outside who knew higher ed. Well, of course, that's me.
Yeah, right.
And hour a week pro bono. They're too cheap to pay for my parking or my dry cleaning. but it's my alma mater. So I started going, and that was in October. By March, I was half-time. By June, I was full-time. And I served as the chief information officer for 7 years.
Oh,
wow, that's so great.
So my wife goes, "Oh, I knew you'd do that." And I said, guys are stupid. You need to, next time I do something, tell me I'm going to do it. So you were the moth to the flame. So
yeah, oh yeah.
But we had a good, in the 8 years total, my first year was H1N1 swine flu, and the president said, "Could we go online?" And the answer was no. Our equipment was old, the software was buggy, and so over 8 years, we moved as much to the cloud as we could. So in March 2020, my successor was able to increase VPN, increase Zoom, and 70,000 people went online to do research, work, and teaching.
Great
so
time.
I feel good about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great.
That is awesome. And so you wrote a book called Spheres of Influence. And so what prompted you to do that?
Well, I've been fortunate over the 40 years of my career to have some really good bosses and mentors. I had a couple of clunkers, of course, but at the firm, there's really a culture of building the firm. I joined Arthur Andersen. There are 40,000 consultants. Now they have 700,000 Accenture employees. So, and a lot of that is organically grown. So our role early in our careers were to be mentored. And then as you become management, you're required to mentor people. And I really enjoyed that. And even my last year, after 22 years, I taught a course in project management in our training center in Chicago, 200 people from all over the world. And I was there with several partners, and it was just a joy
That's
to teach the next
Wow.
generation. So I continued to mentor at the university. We had a culture that in the central IT that was kind of a fire drill culture, heroics, which is the opposite of
Mhm.
me. I like to plan ahead and not have things
yeah.
crash and fix. And so after, a couple of years, we had to change the culture to more of a customer focused
Mhm.
culture. And so I enjoyed that. And I still mentor two or three people a year, but that's not very scalable. And so I thought, how can I get my all these stories and kind of package them up and share them more widely? And that's why I wrote the book.
Oh, that's great. Love it.
Wow.
Love it, love it, love it. And I love the part of the book you said it's broken into two parts, is what I'm understanding, right?
Hmm.
Kind of the personal, focuses on, who's internally you're connected with, and then the external connections that you have.
Mhm.
Right.
And so I love that aspect of things. It's funny, I was helping out a marketing and PR firm, and this is like 6, 7 years ago, and they had 5 account directors, and they had a 50% retention rate, which was terrible.
Mm,
If they'd hire,
Mhm.
they'd lose one client, right?
wow.
And so I asked the 5 account directors, I said, tell me two things that you know about each one of your accounts, who you talk to, right?
Yeah.
They're like, well, what do you mean? I go, give me two personal things. Do they have kids? Are
Mhm.
they married? What did they do last weekend? Give me
Yeah.
Mhm.
two things. At that point they had 22 accounts, and they couldn't tell me most of them couldn't tell me one thing about them, let alone
Wow.
Yeah.
two.
So that's very transactional, very
Oh,
superficial,
Right.
so what they
you
would do is
know.
they'd go into a meeting and they go, all right, Brad, here's what's going on. We'd be like, hey, Brad, how you doing? Good. All right. Anyway, so here's what we did for you last week. Instead of,
Mhm.
hey, Brad, how was
Yeah,
the weekend? What did you do? Right.
that's right.
What about him, right? And so I finally got him to do that. And we went from a 50% retention rate to a 93% retention rate.
Mm.
Yeah.
Just
That's a big
because,
difference.
yeah, just because we were talking to people and letting them know we
Well, and
Well,
it's
and
we all know
it's
sales is relationship driven, and
yeah,
again, the deeper you can dive into transactional issues in business, depending on the timeline, but the more success you're going to have. It's Jeff's and my passion to talk about that. Know your people,
yeah.
you know, support your people,
Well,
regardless of the
plus it's
organization.
really expensive to have that turnover in your
Oh,
client base.
Yes, yes,
At Accenture, we were at 80, 90% retention. You want to have that repeat
yeah.
sure,
customer.
Yeah.
sure.
And
So tell us, Brad, about the book. Tell
yeah.
us a little bit about, yeah, some of the concepts in your book, or
So
high level points.
sure, the internal sphere of influence are those people you have the most direct impact with. So it would be your boss, your direct reports, executive leaders, and all your staff, because you interact with them every day.
Hmm.
And then the external sphere of influence are those you don't meet with as often, but are important, your customers,
Hmm.
peers and influencers, and your strategic vendor partners. Not all vendors are strategic, so you have to decide who is strategic.
Hmm.
Not all your customers are equal. You have to decide who are your best customers and then focus on them. And sometimes you have to fire a customer.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm of the philosophy the customer isn't always right. Sometimes they're wrong.
Yep.
And
I agree with
if you
that.
don't have a relationship that works, then why are you working with them? I had one
Yeah.
customer who their executive leaders asked them to ask the vendors for free stuff. So every week we do this kabuki theater where they'd ask me for free stuff. And I said, I don't do free stuff. Why don't you quit asking me? And then I said, I'd be happy to do a change order. And when I did the change order, I said, I'm going to add 30% contingency because you're such a pain in the ass.
Yes, yes.
And you know what they said? They said, we understand.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
I didn't work for him again. And the executive said, I really don't blame you,
Yeah.
so they know when they're not behaving well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
what's a major point in the book that you try to make sure people get?
That's a great question. There are three principles that I found after I wrote the manuscript. I kind of sat back and said, okay, what principles apply to all business relationships? And number one is understanding their goals and aspirations. What
Okay.
is your boss's goals and aspirations? What is your customer goals and aspirations? Second, set and manage expectations. Boy, that's so easy, but we don't do it often enough.
Right.
And you can get in so much trouble by not doing that. Um, I had the plumber was supposed to show up 3 days ago. He didn't show up. Now, what is that? That doesn't build any trust.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's like at least have the professional courtesy to call me and tell me you're not coming.
Mhm.
So setting and managing expectation. Then third is genuinely caring for their success. And I had vendors who genuinely cared about the success of the university, and I had vendors who didn't care.
Mhm.
And guess how many survived?
Yeah.
The
Right.
ones who cared.
Yeah.
And my first week at the university, I asked this professor, who 40-year professor, really crusty guy. I worked with him 15 years earlier in a statewide network designed for Texas. And I said, okay, give me some advice. He goes, get out of the office and tell people you give a damn.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's so true. And so I made a point every 4 to 6 weeks to work with my peers on the university and probably 10 relationships that I would meet with. And even if I had nothing to talk about, but I would say, hey, there's a big project coming up. We're replacing all the phones to voice over IP, 21,000 phones. It's going to be irritating, but we
Mhm.
have a team to help. I promise it won't be a problem. If it is a problem, here's my phone number,
Yes. Yeah.
and they would share things with me like, oh, your staff really did something well and blah, 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 or hey, your staff didn't do something well, blah, blah, blah. And they'd share rumors. Brad, I heard a rumor that there's no diesel in the generator at the data center. I said, Bob, that's a great rumor. Let me go check.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the generator was run on natural gas. It was a great rumor,
Oh,
Yeah.
and
that's
it would have
funny.
been horrible if it was true, but it wasn't true. And so
Yeah.
just to nip it in the bud immediately. So my direct reports, I had 7 direct reports, and my directors also had 8 to 10 relationships with their peers and influencers. So we basically had this network across a 70,000 person university
Mhm.
that was our nervous system. And one of my direct reports would review the manuscript, and she says, Brad, I need to remind you of something you did. You asked me to go meet with Sally, and I thought you were insane because Sally hated us. Her department chair hated us due to my predecessor's untruthfulness. So there's some bad behavior there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I need you to go meet with her and just build some sort of relationship because we need them in the tent, not outside the tent throwing rocks at us.
Yeah.
And so she, knowing that, thinking I was insane, she started meeting with her once a month. And after about 9 months, we started getting better. Our service delivery improved. We were more transparent when things went wrong. And this person became an advocate. And then the department chair became an advocate. So someone who was throwing rocks at us just by going out and meeting and sharing ideas and seeking how we could be helpful, built an advocate.
Yeah, it's great.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it.
So have you found changes at all, Brad, in like, let's say the last 20, 25 years in this kind of, this kind of concept? Jeff and I talk a lot about, just the multi-generational issues now in the workplace and how different it is and how varied it is and how, you've got a lot of different moving parts now with your workforce and a lot of different ages and such and communication styles. So tell us a little bit about that.
Um, I think the three principles, understanding goals and aspirations, setting and managing expectations, and genuinely caring seems to work in all generations.
Okay, good. Yeah.
People want to know, want to share what their goals and aspirations are. If you take over an organization, you want to sit down with your direct reports and say, what's working well, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be CIO one day? If so, when I go on vacation, you can be acting CIO.
Mhm.
See if you like it.
Yeah.
um, and and some don't want to do that. I had some very talented network engineers. They didn't want to be the CIO. They wanted to do their creative
Mhm.
work with the network.
Mm-hmm.
I had one of my engineers got an offer from a startup. Austin is a hotbed like Nashville of IT.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he got a big offer. They were going to feed him, do his dry cleaning, and I said, "Look, I don't say this to everybody, but if you don't like it, you can come back."
Oh,
Because
wow.
what could the university offer? The university could
Mm-hmm.
offer balance.
Right.
I can't compete on salary. I'm not going to feed you, and I won't do your dry cleaning.
Yeah.
However, after 8 hours, you go home. And our when we my first 90 days, we developed the values for the organization, and they were what campus wanted: collaboration, trust, truthfulness. But you know what number one was? Family first.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yep.
And I said, if you have a school play, go to the school play. If
Mm-hmm.
you have a doctor's appointment, go to the doctor's appointment. If you're sick, don't be a hero, stay home. And then I
Yeah.
would try to model those behaviors. Go on vacation, take some training, you know. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, he calls and he goes, "This place is a zoo. I can't believe I made this change. I did it for my family. Can I come back?"
Oh, wow.
And it's
Boy,
like,
he did that pretty quickly, didn't he?
yeah, it's 2 weeks. And it's like they fed me because I never went home.
I love it.
And so he's still there years later.
Wow.
Yeah, it's always so difficult, you know. I mean, and you know what's interesting? We're having this conversation to me. What's interesting to me is we're having this conversation, and it just seems like natural stuff that we should be doing, but yet we got to keep
Yes,
talking about it.
Yeah.
yes.
Why is it?
I I had someone said, Brad, all this is common sense, but not everyone has common sense.
No.
Apparently, not a lot of
Especially in the
people.
workforce,
Yeah.
especially in the workplace.
No, that is in business school. They don't teach this in business school.
No.
No one talks about it. Yet your point earlier, sales rely on relationships. So
Absolutely.
how can you not talk about it? I think so. Let's talk about working with the boss. Sometimes people are scared to ask what their goals and aspirations are. Sometimes they're scared to set and manage expectations.
Hmm.
Sure.
So I had a type A boss, and everything she said sounded urgent, urgent, urgent. And I was, it was 5 o'clock. I was trying to leave on time to have dinner with my wife, and I get this call. It's the boss. I need a white paper. A white paper. It's like, oh, I'm working all night. And I literally said, whoa. I said, whoa, not no, because no will set her off.
Right.
So I
Uh-huh.
said, whoa. I said, when do you need this white paper? She, let me check my calendar. Oh, I need it in 2 weeks. Woohoo. How many pages do you want this white paper to be? 3 pages. I was thinking 10. Do you have an example of a white paper that I could look at? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ask David. I did one in XYZ Corp 10 years ago. Well, guess what? I went home,
Yeah.
had dinner with my wife.
Yeah,
Now,
wow.
before I learned to say, whoa, I would have called the wife and said, I have to work all night. I would have worked all night and delivered a 10-page
Yeah.
white paper the next day, and the boss would be mad because it didn't meet her expectations.
Right.
Wow.
Lose, lose,
Yeah.
lose.
Yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
sometimes people are scared to
Communicate.
Ask.
Yeah, to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jan and I talk about that a lot. I mean, one of the things that we're big advocates on is building a culture where people aren't afraid to ask.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
And
It's safe. You need a safe ecosystem.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's only going to work to your advantage in the end. If you set up a position of fear, or, that kind of that feeling of fear within your team, it's a completely losing situation all the way
Yeah.
around, you know?
You
And
had
again,
talked
the retention is low. So,
well, you had talked about communication. One thing that I tried to do is every week I wrote a blog, and the blog was my attempt to set the tone for the organization and not let the grapevine do it.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
and especially in the first 90 days when you're the new guy and
Mhm.
they don't know who you are, what you represent. And I talk about the values of the organization. And I talk about who I'd give kudos to people who did a great job. I would apologize when we screwed up. I mean, we had 330 people in central IT, 52,000 students, 4,000 faculty. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Lots of stuff.
Oh my
But
God,
it's
that's
how
funny.
you deal with it
Yeah.
when things go wrong. And we became much more predictable and much more transparent. So when we made a mistake, we would apologize and then say, this is what we'll do to keep it from happening again. So those blogs really was a two-way street, to your
Mhm.
point.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I had, it'd go to 330 people in my organization and about 300 other people interested in IT at UT. Not UT Tennessee, but UT Texas.
Yeah.
And I said UT at Vanderbilt one time, they started choking me, and I said, no, 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 Texas, Texas. And I would get feedback. And I had one message from a staff person. Brad, you talked about the employee awards, and we were glad you were there to acknowledge that. But it takes sometimes 6 months to get the pin. What is going on?
All right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't know that, you know? And it's like, the university is the biggest, slowest bureaucracy on earth. It's like,
Yeah,
who knows why?
exactly.
But, I think they had the patent on red tape.
Oh
And,
my gosh, I love it.
but we just nipped it in the bud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, everyone got their award the same day.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so
But
great.
to have that two-way communication was
Yeah.
really, really important.
And you have to set that up initially, in my opinion, Brad. It's hard to capture that once you've set sort of that non-communicative
Right.
environment. Like,
Right.
it's hard to get it back once you've kind of shut down your team or your coworkers and stuff. It's tricky because we make those decisions very, very quickly as human beings. That fight, flight, or
Right.
freeze sort of biology that's wired in us is very quickly, it's set up very quickly, just biologically. That's how we're built. So
Yep.
once that's shut down, it's real hard to establish that. So if you can establish that from the beginning, like you said, where there is this kind of free flowing communication and trust, and let me go fix this for you, like right away,
Yeah.
then your coworkers and the people that you're answering to trust. They build that trust, and that's really important.
So I noticed when I stepped back again to look at the manuscript, several times I said, use your words.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's like, as me as a boss, when I give out an assignment, set those expectations. Don't just let it hang out there in the ether.
Mm-hmm.
I need this, it needs to look like this at this time scale. Can you do that? You know? So
Sure.
Absolutely.
use your words. And then the other phrase was your your direct reports are not mind readers.
Oh, that's a good
So
one.
so
Yes.
you need to use your words, and people aren't mind readers.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
I had a direct report who came in and complaining about one of her peers. And I said, well, what did she say when you talked with her? And she stared at me and said, well, I haven't talked to her. I said, well,
Oh my gosh.
why don't you
Yes.
go talk to her? Because I can't do anything if you haven't talked to her.
That's right.
And she learned over time not to come to me to be the rescuer and give me the problem, but I expected them to work it out. And they're much closer to it than I am.
Yeah.
So
You're absolutely right.
there's an old Harvard Business School paper done in the 70s. It's a riot because they talk about typewriters and stuff, but it's called the monkeys. Don't let your people put monkeys on your back. And this boss noticed that his people were leaving on time. They were playing golf on the weekends, and he was working all the time because they gave all their monkeys to him. So he learned to say, okay, this is a monkey. I'm giving you the monkey back. I'm not accepting any monkeys.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that
my
was
gosh, I
another.
love
I
that.
gave my direct reports the first 90 days all got a copy of that article.
Oh,
I don't want your monkeys.
Yeah, right. Oh, I love it. I love it.
that's great.
Well, Brad, so thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. To our listeners out there, Sphere of Influence, How to Create and Nurture Authentic Business Relationships. Brad is the author of that book. I see you can find that on Amazon. Is there other places that they can find it, Brad?
Anywhere books are sold. The audiobook came out on Audible this week.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations.
That's great.
And I have a link customized for your podcast that I put in the chat that
Okay, great.
actually offers some free stuff, free
Great.
sample of the book, a link to where you can purchase it, and third, you can schedule time on my calendar if you want.
Wonderful.
It's an Amazon bestseller in 3 categories: leadership
Awesome.
training, mentoring and coaching, and customer relations.
That's
Wonderful.
great.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, Brad, thank you so much for being on the show again. We really appreciate it. To all our listeners out there, as always, thank you for your support. We love to hear from you. Just keep those messages coming. Thank you so much. And we're excited that we're able to have guests like Brad on board just to talk through these great topics about leadership. So thanks again, folks. Till the next time, stay safe and be healthy.